Hey everybody, welcome back to the show, to my quarantine, to my coronavirus quarantine. No, of course not. To my coronavirus virus quarantine. There seems to be a lot of lunacy out there. I mean, maybe some of it's merited to some extent, but actually I did my own research this morning. I know up until now, my thoughts on the coronavirus have been, hey, I'm not an epidemiologist. Who am I to say outside my wheelhouse? Be more concerned about the coronavirus virus than the coronavirus itself. That's all I really know about the anxiety surrounding it. But I did some more research this morning because I figured, what the heck? Went to the doctor last week, a couple weeks ago, and I got my blood results back. My cholesterol is high. So they want to put me on statins. I mean, it's a little bit high. And I'm thinking, you know what? The freaking doctor doesn't know what she's talking about. What makes an epidemiologist? I mean, I've never been in the world of epidemiology. Maybe I know that better than the epidemiologist does. I know cholesterol better. I know it doesn't just come down to total cholesterol. It's the ratio between HDL, LDL. There's different kinds of LDL. Maybe I should do a particle test. Look at my triglycerides, look at my blood glucose. It's not just the freaking overall cholesterol, but they just look at the overall cholesterol and they want to put me on a statin. They want to essentially lower my testosterone. Why? Because they're trying to cover their butt. And I think that's maybe what some epidemiologists are doing now. I mean, look, just some basic facts about this coronavirus. Look, clearly it's worse than a regular virus. But is it worth shutting down the whole freaking Western Hemisphere? I don't think so. If you are old, if you are older than 70, really not even older than 60, older than 70, and you have a respiratory problem, yeah, you need to quarantine yourself. And if you have a loved one, a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather who is old and who may have a respiratory problem, who was a smoker for a while perhaps, who is obese, yeah, you shouldn't go see them. But this is what we would do in any other kind of flu situation. I remember this one time my uncle was overcoming meningitis. He was coming back from the hospital and we were there. We were going to go visit him. But the night before, I was developing flu symptoms. And so we had to leave. I remember that specifically because I felt really bad about that because I wanted to see him. It's the same thing. There are a certain segment of the population that is definitely at risk, but everybody else seems pretty much okay. And in some ways, the coronavirus is better because it seems to affect kids less negatively. Negatively less and less negatively. I mean, if you're not obese, if you don't have a respiratory problem, then you're going to be fine. It's not just, it affects everybody the same. We all got to be careful. No, it clearly affects some people in a serious way, and we need to pay attention to that. Don't you know about exponentials? Don't you know about fat tails? Like, yeah, I've never taken a freaking stat class. Thank you. It's like people are trying to intimidate you with their, quote, intelligence by talking about exponentials, and people just don't understand compounding interest. Yeah, I do understand that. I also understand teasing apart variables. And just because you have a high LDL doesn't mean that you're at risk for a heart attack. I also know covering your ass. I also know anxiety and how that affects just how everything we see. I mean, I was on Twitter this morning. It's ridiculous. Nobody's actually talking about the coronavirus. They're talking about their anxiety about the coronavirus. Oh, look at this other event that shut down. Oh, look, they canceled the NBA, the NCAA. Oh, look, isn't this terrible? Oh, no, I'm feeling anxious because of it. I'm talking about that anxiety. You're not talking about the facts of the coronavirus, which is, sure, certain segment of the population, please quarantine yourself. Do not visit these people. Call them on the phone. Say hi to them. Wish them well. I don't know, maybe come up with a way to deliver them groceries. I mean, if you know an old person or you have a loved one who's old and may have a respiratory issue, or anybody who's a smoker, more obese and older, then yeah, that may be an issue. But everybody else, I mean, it seems less of an issue. It seems like less of a serious flu. I mean, yeah. The incubation period's 2 weeks. I mean, that's kind of a problem. Look, it's definitely worse than a regular flu, sure. But the way the economy's tanking, it's just like anything. It's just like in anybody's personal life. Like if you have a nephew, let's say, who's going through a particular difficult time, and you know he has issues. Okay, so let's say he's getting kicked out of school. Let's say you was me, getting kicked out of grad school. Now, look, that happens, and it's unfortunate. And I'm not going to come and say, oh, it's no big deal that you got kicked out of grad school. No, it sucks. But you're going to feel way worse about it if you know that your nephew has issues. And I think that's really what is I think, causing everybody alarm about the coronavirus. Is like in America, at least, we know we have this deep-seated anxiety issue, attachment disorder issue that we've been parading out as the political scene, at least this year. So we know we're not ready to handle a flu that's a little bit worse than a regular flu. And it's not the issue with the flu, it's the issue with us. Like, we know we get on some level that we can't handle that. Like, you can't, like, you understand your nephew can't handle getting kicked out of school. So, like, it just reveals, like, this issue, this coronavirus issue, this getting kicked out of school issue reveals the issues that you have. And when those issues that you have are revealed, that's the real problem. Not getting kicked out of school, not your girlfriend dumping you, not giving giving a presentation and having it go really bad and stuttering and getting really nervous. That's just revealing something about you. Is there a problem with the presentation? Not really. I mean, is there a problem with the coronavirus? The coronavirus specifically? No. In fact, I think we've done a pretty good job handling it. I mean, Trump was maybe kind of slow. I don't know. I'm not going to give it a definite opinion on that. We'll probably need more hospital beds at some point. But are we going to shut down the freaking economy? I mean, let's go, people. I mean, do we just want the economy shut down so we can just stay at home and not do anything? Now we have an excuse to stay in. Is that what we really want? I don't know. Yeah, just a lot of overreacting. I mean, I guess I am kind of concerned because it does seem to be affecting obese people more. And something I don't think I mentioned in my drive across America this past year is, wow, everybody's really fat. I was really taken aback by how fat everybody was. I mean, it was startling. So, I mean, geez, I don't know. I mean, what's the association between obesity and respiratory issues, or how bad is the coronavirus really affecting people who are obese? I don't really know. But boy, if it is, then yeah, then maybe this coronavirus is a big deal. But again, it's not the coronavirus. It's the obesity. Oh, look, my nephew got kicked out of school. Oh, look, this my girlfriend dumped me, and then my life went in this negative trajectory. Was it the girlfriend dumping you? No, it wasn't that at all. It was the latent issues that you had as represented in America by the anxiety, by the obesity that's caused by anxiety, mostly. I mean, that's why people overeat. That's the impulsivity. We'll get to it. Wait, got a question episode for you. That's the impulsivity of just like this constant overeating. You're trying to soothe your anxiety, trying to soothe your stress that you don't really know how to manage. Yeah. Oh, your LDL's high, so you need to go on statin. Oh, look, the coronavirus is killing this percentage of the population. Therefore, all people are at risk. I mean, it's very similar to the AIDS thing, right? Remember that? And Pedro was going around telling everybody about AIDS, but he didn't want to tell people that he was gay because he didn't want to put people in a false sense of security, just because they weren't gay or they weren't intravenous drug users. Well, guess what? You're much more likely to contract HIV if you're intravenous drug user or you're gay. How about let's just be honest about people about that? We can't just group everybody into, oh, AIDS is a big problem. No, for most people, it's not. It really isn't. I mean, look at the rate of transmission from man to woman. Or I think it's a little bit higher from man to woman. Unprotected vaginal sex, man to woman. I think it's like 1 in 300. I mean, and what's anal sex? It's like 1 in 10, maybe even higher than that. It's not the same thing. Let's just not group everybody together. Like, it's not. It causes this anxiety, it causes this panic, and it makes it more difficult to see the issue for what it is. And yeah, now I feel like I'm part of it when I'm saying old people stay home, but I think old people really need to stay home, especially if you have a respiratory issue. There's this guy in my group therapy who wasn't there. I think he's 80 or 82 or something. Yeah, he didn't show up this week. And I'm thinking, good. Yeah, stay home. You don't need to be out unless you really have to, But do we need to freaking cancel the March Madness? I mean, yeah, if I am worried about one thing, it's what's going to happen to the economy. What's going to happen to my nephew when his girlfriend dumps him? Not the girlfriend dumping him. That happens. Viruses like this, it happens. But how are we going to manage it? And I think this is exposing this anxiety that I've been talking about for a while in America, this attachment disorder. And if this is good for anything, it's like, let's look at this anxiety for what it is and not just say, oh, look, it's the coronavirus. Let's be honest about where this anxiety is coming from. There are issues with you that you don't want to talk about that go a lot, to a deep, serious part of you. And there's probably a lot of shame around it because you think, well, there's nothing I could do to manage this anxiety around this issue anyways, so I'm just not going to talk about it. No, you got to talk about it. There is something you can do with it. If nothing else, then bring it into awareness. Oh, well, I already know about it. Well, you really don't. Not until you hear the words pass through your lips with another face looking at you, at least one other face looking at you, can you really bring awareness to it. And only when you do that can you really start to manage these issues. Can you really start to look at the anxiety? And I'm sure there is something you can do about it. Bringing awareness to it's huge, by the way. But even in addition to that, I think there's still something you can do about it. So next time, inoculate yourself. Inoculate your psychology against the news of whatever next virus is coming. West Nile, SARS, Ebola. I don't know. You gotta be careful. Not about these viruses, but about your psychology. All right. We'll get to your questions now. This first one. Would a non-narcissist ever cheat on somebody? They said this wrong. Would a non-narcissist ever not cheat on somebody? I think you mean, would a non-narcissist ever cheat on somebody? So, to cheat on somebody, would you need to be a narcissist? Does that automatically make you a narcissist to cheat on somebody? Well, I mean, look, there's 7 different indications of narcissism. Everybody is a narcissist to some degree. If you have more of those indications, more of those symptoms of narcissism, then you are more likely to cheat on somebody. What is narcissism? And nobody tells you this. I mean, you probably think that narcissism, I have a video on narcissism, go check it out. You probably think, let me see if I can move this closer. Is that better? You probably think that narcissism means, oh, I have a huge ego. Yeah, that sounds better. Probably means, oh, I have a huge ego and I want everybody to pay attention to me because I think I'm so awesome. And that's what narcissism is, when in truth, that's how narcissism presents. But really what narcissism is a lack of boundary. Just kind of like borderline personality disorder, but less severe. You don't have an identity. You don't have a strong sense of self. So when CNN comes on and talks about COVID-19 for the next 13 days, all you can do is freak out about it because you have no sense of self. It just comes in. You can't decide. And that is rooted in your dysregulated emotion. And so what happens when you don't have a boundary? Well, you're going to act out in ways. Yeah, or dysregulated emotion. Regulated emotion, which creates the boundary. Dysregulated emotion creates holes in your boundary. So you're going to act out in unproductive ways because you're in a sense distancing yourself from your own issues. So if there's issues in a relationship, you can't deal with the issue itself. You can't communicate directly to the issue. So what you'll do is try to run away from the issue, act out, not in spontaneity, which we'll get to, act out in impulsivity to distance yourself from the pain of the issue. And one of the ways you can do that is by cheating on your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend. Now, it doesn't mean just because, you're going to be more likely to act out those issues cheating on somebody. I mean, that goes to who you are, but you're not more likely to cheat on somebody because the way we're built, we're sexually attracted to the opposite sex or the same sex, as the case may be. Now, if you're going to act out, right, you're going to do it with a beautiful woman, not, like I say, with a doorknob. That is evolutionary psychology. It explains that we're going to be much more likely to act out in certain ways. It doesn't explain why we're acting out in the first place. It thinks it does. It really doesn't. So yeah. Could a non-narcissist? No, I think, if you cheat on somebody, that's a pretty good indication that you have a boundary issue to the extent that you could just describe you as a narcissist. Again, I don't really think that means anything specifically. These debates about, I brought up this week in my video, well, what is depression? Is depression real? Well, we don't know that. We have to first think about what emotions are. and how to manage them. Only then can we get a better perspective on whether depression is real. And I think it's the same thing with narcissism. Is narcissism real? Well, you can't really point to it. You can point to symptoms of it. But I think when we understand emotions in their proper context, and we understand how the lack of regulation of emotions affects our behavior, then we can understand narcissism, understand it better for what it is. So yeah, if you cheat on somebody, I mean, that's, behind their back, that kind of dishonesty, that usually indicates some kind of narcissism trait. Now, like depression, so what? You're a narcissist. So what? You're depressed. Can you do something about it? That's why we don't like these labels. It's because we think, oh, I'm a narcissist. There's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. Now you go to most therapists and don't be like, oh, let's deal with this narcissism implicitly. Because they don't understand the root cause of it. Because they just haven't deconstructed emotions like we have here at Animus. Yeah, you're a narcissist. Okay. I mean, everybody's a narcissist at some point. Every 2-year-old's a narcissist. But you grow up, you learn to regulate, you learn how to communicate. Maybe you didn't learn that for whatever reason. We can talk about that. But unless you work on those issues, then the narcissistic behavior, the acting out, the impulsivity, the obsessive thoughts, compulsive behaviors, it's going to keep happening. Luckily, there is a map, a very definitive yet abstract map on how to do exactly that. AnimusEmpire.com. Check out my book. That's a good place to start. This next question is about group therapy. This person was just having a difficult time with it, and just a lot of complaints. Like, are they doing it wrong? How would I advise somebody to go into group therapy? Well, I mean, look, if you're just simply going into group therapy on your own without any real grasp on what your issue is, then I do think it can be a problem. There's just a lot of bad therapists running group. I mean, the worst offense that I've seen in therapists running group is they just let somebody complain on and on without getting a better grasp of their issue. They're just there to vent. And that can be pretty annoying. I mean, I've definitely been in groups like that. That can for sure be annoying. So no, I wouldn't say to start off going to group if you've never been to therapy before. The only caveat to that would be a 12-step group could be helpful. So if you have an alcohol problem, go to AA. There's at least more of a structure there. And the best part about AA is there's people who've probably been there for 30, maybe even 40 years, and they can help you and they can guide you along. And I mean, it's not going to be the best instruction, but honestly, it's going to be better than most therapy. But the thing to do for group is to learn how your emotions work. Learn how you've been relating with your emotions. Come do the unconscious map with me. Get the course. I teach you how to talk through your emotions. What specifically you need to get out of talking through your emotions. We all have this loop. Let's take this neurotic loop, bring it up to the surface, bring awareness to it. And then from there, then you get it intellectually. And then from there, the purpose of group is to just bring more emotional awareness to it. Look how it comes up in your life. Oh yeah, it's like, I'm not paying attention to my needs. Yeah, it came up here in this situation where I've been doing that the same way for 14 years. I didn't even realize it until I'm noticing, oh, this is my neurotic loop that I take out into the world and I just apply to a bunch of these situations. And then when you have that, then you can go to group, bring more awareness, get more emotionally connected with your loop, and then you're going to be much more likely to change it. That's the point of group. Individual therapy, what I do with unconscious map is just digging down and looking at what the issue is. But I can't really help you any more than that. I mean, I can show you what to do and show you how to talk through these things. Then you take that information and then go to a group, you don't have to go to a group. There's lots of things that you can do, but keep working with that information. And then you just take the neurotic loop, gradually bring it up to the surface. I think I've used this metaphor multiple times. And as you bring it up to the surface, it just naturally dissipates. It doesn't naturally dissipate, but as you become more emotionally attuned with it, the information in it, you just become more aware of what it's telling you to do. That's the idea. And then it can become really powerful. But you have to understand your own issue first. I mean, if you just go into a group blind, and a lot of times you can't, right? Like you go to a grief group or you go to a group for anxiety and you have to be recommended by somebody. But even then, you might not have an idea, you probably don't have a good grasp of what your issue is and how to talk about it. And yeah, boy, it sure does get annoying when people just drone on. I mean, at least in a 12-step group, they have a time limit, I think, most of them, right? They have like a 3 or 5 minute time limit. So if somebody is just complaining, well, they're, in some groups I've been to, there's no time limit. People just go on. It's awful. I mean, the way that groups are run, it's a real travesty. And I guess, if groups were run in a proper way, I mean, the way that I run my Animus group, then you wouldn't really have to understand your emotional issues. You'll get proper guidance on how things work. But yeah, for most everybody else, at least read my book and try to understand emotions from that perspective. And that'll give you a lot better idea of how you need to talk through issues at group. But if you still need more clarification, get the course, animusempire.com/course, or do therapy with me, animusempire.com/therapy. If you're not sure where to go, set up a free consultation. animusempire.com/schedule. I mean, I just want to throw a bunch of resources at you. You don't have to be alone in your neurosis. There is a solution to this. Now, it's not immediate, and it's definitely not the easiest thing in the world, but we can at least make it simple. That's really what I want to give to you guys, just a simple solution to your emotional issues. So when this coronavirus thing happens and you feel anxiety about it, and I think we probably need to be feeling some anxiety about this. I think we need more hospital beds. That seems like the prudent thing to do. But we got to be able to differentiate between the coronavirus and our anxiety about the coronavirus. And I just don't see any, that would be leadership around this issue, and I just don't see any, much of that. And what else would we expect in a society of attachment disorder? But that's why we need to talk about these issues. And we need to understand how our emotions work. Precisely. All right, this next question is about the incest fantasy. Man, I got a lot of reaction to that incest. Well, I think I did 2 videos about, there's a incest video, recovering from enmeshment. Oh, and then there's the incest fantasy issue. And then the incest fantasy issue, which got 1,000 views or something. I say, look, the reason why I have an incest fantasy is because you see, as Jung would say, you are essentially taking your libido and directing it inward. You're taking your life energy, your life force. The best way I describe libido is money. Look at an organization or look at an individual. And you can see how their libido, in a sense, operates. I think you can explain psychology without libido. Just the way that you would relate libido to my emotional diagrams is just where are you directing your decision with each emotion. And I think Jung is right to say that an incest fantasy, not that you really want to partake in any sort of incest, but the fantasy of that is, life is kind of a struggle and it's too much. There's stress there that you can't handle and you want to turn away from that. So you want to direct your libido inward. You want to stop directing it out at the world so much in the form of, I would say, a confrontation of the anxiety, asserting your anger. You want to direct it inward. And part of the incest fantasy is, man, wouldn't life be easier if I could just, in a sick sort of sense, marry my cousin? It would just, I wouldn't have to struggle. It would be less work. It would require less engagement with the world. In a sense, I talked about this in a couple weeks ago. I don't know, maybe 8 weeks ago now. I don't even know, about how to fix the mental health epidemic. And I talk about, just with a bunch of religious sects. I use the Mormons. No, I don't use the Mormons. I use the Amish. And in a way, it's just easier to be Amish. You live in this community. They're going to tell you what to do. You're going to do what your dad does. There's no unemployment. Your dad trains you to be. You don't have to send out your resume 100 million times on LinkedIn or Indeed. I think a bunch of new ones, I guess. So in a way, it would just be easier. And incest fantasy is just a sexual version of that. And this guy who has had an incest fantasy for a while, he says, well, look at my life. Look at all these great things that I've done. And he does seem to have a great life. And he seems to be living, relatively normal. But I just got to say, how you write out your email, it's a really long email. And I don't want to read through all of it. I didn't even copy and paste all of it here. But the way that you're talking about your life in this email, there just seems to be a lot of struggle there. And recently you said, you've had all these issues. Your husband left you, all these things. auto accident. You just seem to bring this, one more thing. Oh, life's been a struggle. I mean, your whole first paragraph. Go back and read your first paragraph. It started out, it's struggle, struggle, struggle. Had a difficult time reading. Had trouble, I think, fitting in. Yet I still picked a career that required me to read a lot. The struggle, struggle. I mean, the implication is a struggle. So it would make sense that you would have an incest fantasy because you see the use of your libido, the direction of your libido out in the world. You just see that as a burden. As a burden you can't really do anything about. So you want to, in a sense, regress from that by projecting out this fantasy where you could just have sex with your brother. I don't know. I'm not saying you really want to do that. You understand that you don't really want to do that, but that's the weird fantasy. So yeah, I mean, I think my point stands, and I think Jung's point stands. Be honest about what kind of struggle you've been going through. And if you do see the use of your libido in a positive direction directed out in the world, if you do see that as an inherent struggle, look, you got to learn how to manage your issues. I mean, I know you watched my incest fantasy video. Go watch the anxiety videos where I really delineate what happens with anxiety. And if we're going to deal with stress in a helpful way, we got to get really clear specifically about our anxiety and our anger and how they relate with each other. And I think once you start managing the anxiety in a better way, I mean, you kind of seem lonely, really. Just like your boyfriend or your husband left you a couple of years ago. You've been with him since 2000. I mean, maybe you're just lonely. That could be part of it too. And with loneliness, it's very difficult to manage anxiety because so much of our awareness that we get about our emotional issues comes from other people, which goes back to why I just think group is really important. But yeah, you got to do it right. And I'm sure you went to a group and it just wasn't run in a really good way. I mean, most groups aren't. I would say 90% of them just aren't run really well. But the point is you get a grasp of your emotional issues and what you're going through, like really, what you're really going through. And then you can go to a group that isn't run well and you can still get a lot out of it. Because you're just there relating. You're there to be as honest about what is going on with you in front of a bunch of other people. And that's looking at the neurotic loop. Dig down, we see it. That is bringing it up to the surface. And you'll see, I mean, it's like magic. When you start doing this, when you start talking about your issues in a proper way, like all these other things, they just kind of go away. It just doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it's really powerful. All right, this next question isn't so much a question, but it's a response to one of my MGTOW videos. This is a more sane response, so I'll respond to it. Yeah, so he gives, it was this big email, but he gives the analogy of just because tragedy befell other men is from a MGTOW perspective is just like saying that there are mines in a field that killed many. Yeah, so he's likening dating women and marrying women like mines in a field, like we're walking through a landmine. And that's the analogy. So it's like, yeah, why would you tell more men to go out in the minefield when we can clearly see where the mines blew up these other guys? And I think this is just a terrible analogy. I mean, it no way includes, it no way accounts for the complexity of relationships. We do know where the mines are, and we do know what to look out when it comes to mines, like where they are. Or there's not just one minefield, there's multiple minefields, and we know where fields where the mines are. There's a lot more of them. Oh, look, there's BPD girl. That's a minefield with way more mines in them. Now, in order to not be attracted to BPD girl, you got to get your own boundary issues together. Okay, so there's ways to do that. I have tons of resources here at animusempire.com to show you exactly how to do that. Okay, so don't go to that minefield. Go to this other minefield. Are there going to be mines there? Sure, of course. Well, here's how you act. Here's how you get your emotional issues handled so you're less likely to be affected by those mines when they do go off, and you may not even be affected by them at all. And also, there's a reward. I mean, it's like talking to these MGTOW guys, it's like they just don't see a reward any sort of payoff, any sort of positive payoff from a relationship with a woman. And I'm not going to argue this. I just think that's really sad. I think there is a huge payoff. I mean, the way that a woman can enrich your life when you can communicate with her. I mean, obviously, if you can't communicate with her, then it's going to be terrible. I mean, but that's like anything else. I mean, that's like anybody in your life. That's same thing with your emotions, right? The issues that you have with women are a reflection of your issues with yourself, with your own emotional issues, excuse me. So, yeah, if all you do is turn away from your emotions, a woman comes into your life, all you're going to do is turn away from her, see her as irrational, probably going to be way more likely. In fact, I know you're going to be way more likely to attract a BPD girl, and then you project her issues out on all of womankind, and that's not true at all. I'm telling you, yeah, don't go down that minefield. I agree. Or through that minefield. There's other ones. Look, here's a minefield with a way better prize at the end of it. Oh, well, there's still mines. Okay, well, here's how you learn. Here's a great mine detector. Here's how to choose a minefield. Here's how to be attracted to a minefield that has essentially no mines in it. The huge reward. In fact, the minefields, of course, the least amount of mines in it, they have the biggest reward. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like the parachute analogy. I mean, these guys give this parachute analogy like they think they're super intelligent. It's like guys talking about the coronavirus. Oh, have you heard of exponentials? Have you heard of compounding? Yeah, I understand how compound works. I understand how exponentials work. Thanks, dude. But we got to tease apart variables here. It's like if 50% of the time you jumped out of a plane, the parachute didn't open. Yeah, but there's things that you can do to make sure the parachute opens. I've been skydiving. I've packed a parachute. I know how to do it. Like, okay, show me how to do it. That's what you do. Go to somebody who has 1,000 jumps, 2,000 jumps. Show me how to pack this parachute. They show you. They give you a license. They make you do it over and over again. They make you do it blindfolded. That's how you need to be preparing yourself for dating, for marriage. Because the reward's great. Skydiving's a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun doing it. Great bonding experience. Great way to reflect on your life. Skydiving. Same thing with marriage. I mean, the issue is the emotion. And if you walk around, and look, I'm not just going to call out MGTOW guys. We all do this to some degree. If you walk around with this dysregulated anger, this resentment, this anger in a sense that you don't really let go of, you don't drop down, you don't turn away from, so it doesn't drop down into sadness. I mean, it kind of does. But when you're on YouTube commenting on somebody's video, it comes back up as a resentment. When you're just holding on to it and not doing with it, not getting regulated with it, not being more comfortable with it, commenting on YouTube or Reddit doesn't count as regulation. Doesn't count as becoming more comfortable, becoming more acclimated with the anger. If you're not doing that, then you're just going to see the entire world through that veil of your anxiety. And you're going to look at the dating market and go, oh, look, it's a minefield. Oh, look, it's just like if I jumped out of an airplane, there's only a 50% chance that the parachute's open. That's not reality. I understand you think that's reality, but that's your veil of anxiety. You got to handle these issues. And to handle these issues, you got to know how anger works. And I feel for you. I was in a somewhat similar boat. I mean, I was never officially MGTOW, but, but you got to understand how your emotions work and just see how they completely change the way you see things and create a way healthier relationship with reality. By the way, I may be talking about this next week. I'm going to go through the book of Job, Jung's answer to Job. I know I talked about it before, but I just think it's really important. And I think a lot of these issues, what that MGTOW is going through, with this person, with the incest fantasy, probably comes back to narcissism too. I mean, I think what Job deals with is just a really great microcosm of that and how Job relates with God, or the projection of his God image, at the very least, I would call reality, how that really teases us apart of just a fundamental truth of what we all go through when it comes to change. So I'm going to talk about that next week. I got one more question here. This listener has a friend, can't tell whether he's impulsive or spontaneous. I know I talk about the difference. Well, how would I tell if your friend is impulsive or spontaneous? Well, I think the real question is, how do you know when you're being impulsive or spontaneous, right? That's the real question. And I don't know. I mean, impulsivity and spontaneity can look the same in the short term on the surface, but in the long term, impulsivity is the consistent avoidance of emotions of your anxiety, while spontaneity is essentially not free from anxiety, but you've incorporated your anxiety so well, you're not, worried about the future, you're not worried about the coronavirus, you're not regretful of anything in the past, so you can just live in the moment. But this doesn't come from telling yourself to stop worrying or to stop regretting, or hey, just live in the now, go read the Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. No, you got to manage your emotions to do that. So only you can really say whether you're being spontaneous. But overall, we can look at your life, and if it's going in a general negative direction, if it's becoming more unhinged, then you're probably being impulsive. But in the short term, I understand it looks the same thing. But I think what you really want to know is how do you know when you're being spontaneous? I mean, I think you just kind of feel it too. I mean, you may not know in the moment. You can look back and go, oh, what was I doing there? Oh, maybe I was avoiding some anxiety. So you got to go and be honest with yourself and go, okay, what was I avoiding? And you got to confront those things in one way or another, at least bring more awareness to those issues. And then over time, you're going to find yourself replacing the impulsivity with more spontaneity. Or just go read Eckhart Tolle, Live in the Now, and just convince yourself that you don't have any issues when you do. Let's see how long that works. Yeah, it's going to work really well, probably, until the next coronavirus comes along and then you start to talk about your anxiety like you're talking about the coronavirus, because you just... The way to deal with your issue is just to tune out from your issues. Now something comes up that really triggers your issue, whether it's getting kicked out of school, your girlfriend breaking up with you, coronavirus, and then you're just tuned out. You're too tuned out at that point to really manage it in a healthy way. And that's how you really know. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. And as always, I wish you all the joy, all the pain that comes from being in touch with reality.